do is I'd like to welcome you all here to tonight. We've had this is the second one we've had. It was very well attended last time we did it. So rather than take you guys out on a Saturday morning and have probably half the attendance, we decided to do again on Zoom. What we're going to do today is we're going to basically go through. This is the WPIAL football clinic for referees. Okay, the agenda will be as follows. Okay, we're going to first start with officially sports. Officially sports asked us to put they asked to put get like a minute or two for for their business. They usually do it at the convention. They asked us to do it here. So Billy, go ahead and run officially sports. You guys can all spend your $25 you get back from the convention.
Nick, I can't hear anything if there's a voice with this.
I can't either. Billy, is there any voice with it? And we'll have to work out the details of that. Mm-hmm. Just let it run, Bill, and we'll work out the details. Hats, new hats, guys. Cold weather gear. I'll narrate. Shoes. As you know, now we can wear white soles and white on our uppers. So they'll have shoes for you too. Game cards for you referees. New whistles if you need a whistle. Whistle shields if we still need to do that. Clocks for JV games and junior high games. All right, sorry about the video, guys. Gift card expires, as we know, September 30th. You get I'll talk a little bit about the convention right now. It's ongoing now for the fall sports officials. It's $50. You get $25 back in a rebate to spend with officially sports. That's why they asked to be on. There's a couple videos that I've watched that I think everybody should watch. The one was Gene's video from Laurel Highlands to the Super Bowl. Fantastic video. And the one, Don't Be That Guy, or Are You That Guy? That was also a very good video. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to go, I've invited some various speakers throughout we're going to do things a little bit differently. We're still going to get to mechanics, but we're going to get to the mechanics in the latter part of the session. I've invited a few speakers because I think it's important that you guys know who people are. Okay, I've invited Vince. Our first speaker of the night will be Vince Sortino. Vince is the Assistant Executive Director of the WPIAL. You may know Vince as the AD at Baldwin. You may know Vince as the AD out. Vince, I can't remember what school you were out east. But he was AD for Baldwin for a long time. Vince is now in the office at the WPIAL. I've asked Vince to say a few words, just so you guys know the WPIAL is behind us. Go ahead, Vince.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate the invite. First of all, I just wanted to thank everyone for taking time out of their evening over the next couple evenings to go through these Zoom meetings. They're very important, and it's an important part of your progression to make your abilities on the field top notch. Obviously, we can't thank you enough for the year that you put in last year. It was a very difficult year, and all the adaptations that you needed to go through just to get the season in, you all should be commended for. As you know, each school has a different protocol when you were showing up at those schools. And we really appreciate the flexibility that each of the officials had in communicating with each other, communicating with the schools, to make the football season happen last year. We're extremely excited about the beginning of this school year, and knock on wood that everything continues to go as is right now. Right now, we're not looking for any, we're not looking at any changes right now. We just, we asked the individual parents, officials, I'm sure Nick will go over this, to just stay in contact with your schools and the athletic directors, as there may be different protocols going back to school, not only for their academics, for their clubs and sports. So I just want to thank everyone for participating in the meeting. Thank you for what you did last year, and I wish everyone luck in their upcoming season.
Thank you, Vince. Anybody have any questions for Vince? Okay, I'll move on then. Our next speaker, our next invited guest is the PIAL State Rules Interpreter from Reynoldsville, Pennsylvania, Mr. Dave Blair. Some of you know Dave very well from doing college football. Some of you know Dave very well from being an observer in District 9 when you went and did state playoff games in basketball and baseball. But now Dave Blair is the PIAL statewide football rules interpreter. And I asked Dave if he could come on and introduce himself and talk. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Nick. I appreciate it. Gentlemen, thank you for having me sitting in on a session. Nick and I talked a little bit here a week or two ago, and I just wanted to.
Dave, is that you background?
No, that's not me.
All right, hold on. Bill, mute everybody, Bill, please. All right, go ahead, Dave. Unmute yourself, Dave. Sorry, we muted you.
Okay, got it, Nick. Nick and I spoke a little while ago, and some couple things that just to touch base with you guys, especially as crew chiefs. You know, some of the things I think going into the season that we need to really kind of hammer home, and that's going to be my my job across the state, is hammering some of these things home. So I want to speak a little bit to this and emphasize this across the state. You know, we're all in this together, regardless of what district we're from, where we come from, which part of the state we come from. And in that, it's rules, mechanics, and I have my third point of 4 points is recruiting. And I'll speak to each one very briefly. Rules knowledge and rules study. Of course, that's for continuous improvement, and no matter what level we're working and how many years we've done this. What it'll do is it promotes constant enforcement of the rules across the state. So as crew chiefs, I'm looking for you to make sure that you guys are getting into the books and doing everything that they can do. The other thing is, we as officials don't have the luxury to pick and choose what rules we choose to enforce in a given night. By that, when we do that, what we have a tendency to do is actually hurt the teams. As they progress through the playoff system, maybe leave the district and they run into other officiating staffs, maybe something that your crews have left go, the other crews are going to tag. So with that being said, some of the things that we look for is knee pads. This is an example. If we allow the knee pads, you know, the players are supposed to wear pants, not shorts. You know, the next level is even cracking down on this. T-shirts hanging out, white T-shirt under dark jerseys. You know, let's clean those up pregame. By doing so, we're not allowing that to go to the next crew. The crew behind you that comes in the next week has to clean that up. So I'm asking, we as crew chiefs, we clean that up. The other thing is sideline control. We need to take charge of the games, and it's a very emotional game. We understand that those emotions, but we also have to do it within the parameters and the integrity of the game. So sportsmanship is going to be extremely important for me and pushing that across the state. Again, don't pass that on to the next crew that comes in behind you. Mechanics, we all need to work on mechanics and crew members, no matter how long they've been working on the field, and no matter whether they're first year or second year. 30 years. We can all improve our mechanics. And that's one thing that each individual official can control. They can control that, how they look on the field and how their mechanics are. And thirdly, recruiting. And I only bring this up because, as you all know, we've seen this crisis coming for years. It's become a crisis now throughout the state, throughout the nation. You know, I believe that it's on us as the officials officiating at this time in our career, that it's on us to encourage anyone that will listen to become an official. You know, we should leave this avocation a little bit better than what we found it. Sadly, sportsmanship is the #1 factor determined by the National Federation that deters someone from becoming an official. So let's enforce sportsmanship and make that a motto across the state. And lastly, Nick and I talked about this, and even Dave Barry and I have talked about this a little bit. Chain of command. Please use your chapter rule interpreter first. If they cannot answer your question, they'll roll it up the chain of command, which would be Dave Barry in your district. And Dave has a question, can't make a determination, he'll come to myself, and then we'll take it on from there. You have to understand I will talk football to anyone at any time. There are over 2,000 football officials in the state of Pennsylvania. We have 52 chapter rule interpreters. We have 12 more additional district interpreters. If you do the math at any given day, if all of those rule interpreters and the district and the chapter, I have 64 people that I could be receiving emails and phone calls from. I still try to hold down a day job, so it becomes overwhelming. So I encourage everyone, work through the chain of command, work it back up through, and we'll be sure to get you an answer. And that's pretty much it, Nick. If anybody has any questions, I appreciate your time, and I know there's a lot to cover tonight for you guys.
Any questions for Dave Blair, guys? Okay, thank you. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Nick.
You're welcome to stay on board. You know,
Okay, I think I will if you don't mind.
that'd be great. Our next speaker is going to be Dave Barry. We have 2 Daves lined up back to back. Dave, as you know, is our District 7, District 8 football rules interpreter. Dave's going to talk about the new changes this year in rules, and this will be the only rules conversation we'll talk during this whole clinic. So Dave, it's your stage right now. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. We're trying to get through this, and this is mainly a mechanics type of Zoom meeting. So I'm going to do this pretty quick. I'm not going to go into a lot of details. Billy's put up a slide presentation that if he just clicks through, Billy, and let them just read them as they go, I'll narrate as we go so we can get through this and get on to the mechanics part. We all know there's a new rule for blocking below the waist in the free blocking zone. That block below the waist has to be immediate. Everybody will attend a state rules meeting. There's a couple good presentations there on it and rules. This is one that I made up earlier in the year. I think this will make it easier on our crew members that are responsible for the line of scrimmage people, because this block has to be immediate. We'll get into that at the state meetings and go into more detail. The 3 points of emphasis: sportsmanship, which we've always talked about, intentional grounding, and an ineligible downfield. They will be covered in great detail at the state rules meeting. Nick asked me to do them here. I would rather, Nick, if it's okay with you, after we get through this little slideshow presentation, give everybody a little snippet of what's going to happen at the state meeting, if we can move on and just do mechanics tonight.
Okay, great. That's okay by me, Dave.
Yeah. The other thing, referees, I'm going to try to get an email.
Is that a legal block or illegal block right there? That's illegal.
What do you think, guys? That's an illegal block. His first movement was standing up. He stood up, he made his initial movement, there he is, step back, step, and then he went low. That's illegal. See his back step? Boom. Illegal.
Okay.
Okey-doke.
Yep.
Other than that, I'm gonna try to get an email thread together with all the chapter interpreters. Back to what Dave said with questions and that we can filter through. I'll get the answers back to whoever answered the question. And I will include Dave Blair in that so that he knows what questions I'm answering and what questions are coming out of our district.
Anybody have any questions for Dave Barry now at this point? Please ask him, okay? Dave, did you want to tell them what's going to go on at the chapter meeting, or are we okay with that? They'll know, or the chapter rules interpretation meeting?
I think at the chapter rules interpretation meeting, they're going to go through a PowerPoint. There's a lot of video out there on it. I don't think we should waste the time there. I'd rather go through mechanics
Fair enough.
and let Joe and Denny have this time to go through the mechanics so we all get on the same base with mechanics, because we will do the rules at another meeting.
Okay, fair enough.
We just touched on it, everybody knows it, and then we can go into the details later.
All right, fair enough. Okay, back to Billy, back to the agenda. We've got, I asked all the assigners to be on the referee call. Lenny Leeper has graciously accepted, so is Brian Sikowski. So Lenny, do you have anything? Please unmute yourself. And if there's anything you want to add, please add.
Yeah, just real quick, Nick. Again, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it. Just one thing real quick, and I actually have a meeting with my MAC crews next week. The one thing I would emphasize with the referees, being in charge of your crews, everything's going to flow downhill to you. So you need to communicate. Not only to your schools, your athletic directors, but to Nick. If you have problems, and I emphasize this with my crews, before, during, or after that game that he needs to know about, or your assigner needs to know about, the last thing they want to do is get it secondhand. It needs to be taken care of immediately. You need to communicate that. I'm not going to communicate with the line judge, the umpire, linesman. It's going to be the white hat. So, make sure that you do communicate. I'm sure you all do at least a week before you're contacting your schools. Make sure if there's anything special going on, parking situations, what have you. I think it was touched on briefly a little bit ago. As of right now, everything's open season. There's no COVID restrictions, but I look for that to possibly change. I know some of my schools down here have had board meetings, and they're talking about, going back to mass situations, what have you. But for right now, it's open season. Fans are coming back and so forth. But again, that's the big thing when you communicate, find these things out, let your crew know in ample time. And again, if there's any problems, you let your assigner know, or certainly let Nick know, and they can handle it. I don't want to take any more of your time. That's just the one thing I wanted to touch on.
Thanks, Lenny. Appreciate that. I concur with Lenny. Please let your assigner know the last thing we want to do is be blindsided by something that happened. All right. The other assigner on here is Brian Sikowski. Brian.
Hey, Nick, how's it going?
Good, Brian. How are you? Anything you want to add?
I'm doing well.
Anything you want to add before we start our little coaches session?
No, Lenny touched on all the topics. If you feel, and what I tell my referees, if you're going to end up on WPIAL for the wrong reason, please give me a call and let me know, so I don't have to find out while watching TV. That's really it. They all fill out game reports, so I'm Lenny handled all the other stuff, so I'm good with that. Okay.
So what we're going to do next is we're going to do something different than we haven't done in previous past clinics. I was sitting with Brian, and Brian brought this up, and I was sitting with Donnie Hall watching a soccer finals last year at Gateway High School. And Donnie always wanted to know what we do as officials to get ready for the season. All right. So basically, I said, hey, Donnie, we do Zoom clinics, we do meetings, chapter meetings, stuff like that. He says, well, what about, if some coaches got on and talked to referees, the white hats and the wing guys. And I said, hey, that's not a bad idea. So Brian did this last week with his referees, and it went really well. So what we did this week is we invited 3 coaches. We invited Mr. John Miller, Coach John Miller from Trinity. We invited Coach Jason Fazekas from Mount Pleasant. We also invited Coach Donnie Hall from Gateway. They're all on the call here. And what Brian's going to do is he's going to walk through scenarios that he did last year. And then these 3 guys will be open to any questions you guys may have. And what we're trying to do is refs, is we're trying to make sure we have better communication between the sideline guys and the coaches and the referee on the field and the coaches. Too many times we get, Brian brought it up at his meeting last week. He surveyed all his coaches. I'm sure Lenny's done the same thing. The biggest problem they have is communication with the officials on the field. It's not the calls people are making. It's the communication on the field of the referees. For instance, we had a referee last year tell a coach, hey, this is my field. Well, no, it's not your field. Okay. It's first of all, it's the athlete's field. Second of all, it's the coach's field. And then third of all, there'd be no coaches and there'd be no referees if there was no athletes. Okay, 99% of these kids will never play another down of football past high school. All right, all we want to do is make that experience. Now, granted, there are some coaches out there that we need to communicate with more than others, but that's what this session's about. And Brian's going to run it. We probably have about 20 to 25 minutes to get this done. So Brian's going to run this through, and he's going to let all 3 coaches talk. And if there's anything you want to, it's sort of like how it's coached, how it's called. All right, so go ahead, Brian. Brian? Please unmute, Brian. Uh-oh. Well, you know what? He's on his way to Notre Dame. Okay. All right. So here I was at his meeting last week. So, John, what makes Coach Miller? What makes the traits of after the game's over? What's the traits of a good crew, and what's the traits of a bad crew in your mind?
I think the biggest thing for me, and thanks for having me on, is that that they communicated with me, that there weren't those situations where the flag was being thrown up in the air trying to hit the moon with it to show everyone that the guy had a penalty, and at the end of the day, just that we all treat each other with some respect. We're going to lose our temper a little bit as coaches. It's just part of the deal on the sideline, in the line of fire. And we recognize that, and a lot of times when it happens, if we just get a calm word saying, "Hey, coach, this is what happened. Just listen to me for a minute," we calm down pretty quickly. The tough part is when you get hollered at and said, you can just wait, things like that. I think especially when the white hats come over and talk to us and say, "Coach, listen, this is what's going on. You calm down a little bit and just listen to us." And at the end of the day, that's what I appreciate. I appreciate the guys that take the time to talk to you. I know we're trying to get the game moving on. Everybody's in a no huddle situation, but there's times when it's good just to stop it and explain a situation that could, pivot the game one way or the other. And whether you win or lose, I really appreciate the guys on the side saying, "Good job, coach," or "Good, see you next time." Instead of trying to run off the field like it was, we're enemies fighting against each other. I appreciate those little things. But we had a situation last year. We played a team across town, and I didn't agree with the call, and the official said, "Well, I'll look at it afterwards," and he did. And he emailed me and he apologized for the call, and that meant a lot to me. That you guys took the time to sit down and look at a play afterwards, and that's something that I'll remember and appreciate that a whole lot when you guys take the time to be prepared and to rectify some mistakes when they occur, because we're going to make them, and we all make mistakes. So that's what I like at the end of the game. If those guys have communicated with me in a respectful manner, and have calmed us down, we sometimes can be childish out there as well, and when you calm us down in a peaceful way, that always works out best.
Brian, you back on?
Yes, I am, Nick. Can you hear me good?
Yes, we can. Yes, go ahead.
So one of the things I challenged the officials, and unfortunately for the referees that I talked to last week, they're going to hear the same thing, is to challenge their line of scrimmage officials, line judge, head linesman, side judge, field judge, to engage with the head coaches throughout the game, because like Joni said, it's not good against evil. We're there for the good of the game. The officials are there for the good of the game. The coaches are there for the good of the game. We're there for what's the most important part is, and the kids who are playing on the field. So we always have to keep that in mind whenever this is going on. It's not the fact that who's right, who's wrong. It's doing what's right for the game. And, and the coaches deserve, our responses. When you throw a flag, you should be able to explain why you threw the flag. And the coach deserves it. And Johnny said he may not agree with the flag, but at least if you give him the answer, he will understand the rationale in those situations. So I'll throw the next question I have out there. What statements, and I don't know if Dawn or Jason want to answer this next one, like what statements for an official just set you off? Like, you can't believe they said that to me, or you've all been around the game for so long, and I'm sure you do remember those from an official.
Donnie?
I think, John touched on it. We talk about certainly trying to keep our composure and to model the correct behavior and to stay cool as best we can. And we fail at it sometimes. But let me just take a little backtrack. I think the perspective or the context that I'd like maybe officials to understand a little bit is, unfortunately, coaches spend like 99% of their time correcting somebody. If we got 11 guys out there and 10 are right, we don't take time to praise all 10. We don't have that time, but we try to correct the one that's wrong. And, we're correcting sometimes our assistant coaches or maybe somebody that's, somebody that's all else involved in the game, the clock operator, whatever. So I think the context, the frame of mind is sometimes, correction. So sometimes I think that bleeds into those interactions with officials where we feel like we want like we can correct it somehow. So like John said, sometimes we get a little bit out of line, or we lose our temper, or we ask, maybe in not the best way. But the ones that would bother me are, somebody that said, like John said, yeah, you can wait, or hey, it's not that big a deal, something like that. Because any call can pivot the game. But the big one that he mentioned too, official, that when you get maybe a flag, he wants to throw the flag like 100 feet in the air so that everybody sees it like a rocket went off, to show how angry he is. It's more than a regular flag he's just tossing on the field, or he's not going to, he wants to draw attention. Or just the other one to me that sticks out is when, like I said, a quick, hey, we want to go ahead and give you an explanation and move on. And there have been times where, I've struggled to move on. I'll admit that. But there are also times when officials, it's kind of like arguing with your wife, where they want to get the last word and they don't want to move on. So maybe we're going to call the next no huddle call, or the next no huddle call, and we're moving on. But that guy didn't like the fact that you had, so to speak, the last word, or you maybe didn't say something, super wonderful at the end of the exchange, and he doesn't want to let it go. At some point, like we've said, we got to model it. And if we can both, I saw some things earlier that, that were written about, have the conversation in front of the kids, not far away from the kids, so that they can see two adults involved in that game who care about the game and are supporting their efforts on the field, communicate respectfully with each other. And I'd love to say that every one of us does it all the time. And that's not the case, but I think that's a great point. It's a great point that we should speak where, not in some secret, cone of silence, off to the side, but we should be able to be, almost modeling to the kids, look, I'm a coach, I'm super competitive. He's an official. We disagreed about something a minute ago, but we're just going to talk through it like grown men and adults and get through it.
Jason,
Don,
anything
one
on-
of the,
Jason,
oh,
anything,
sorry.
Jason, anything from your side?
Yeah, sure. I mean, just a couple quick minutes. The other guys made some really good points. A couple things like I know for me, like when you're talking about like how games go and things like that, the best games, the ones that I think are the best officiated, are the ones where there's the least amount of penalties. I'm a big guy where I only like the proponent just to see like the obvious calls and things like that. So I always think those games go the best. And the more I keep thinking about like the sportsmanship stuff, and over the past couple of years, there's no reason, I should be, berated by somebody. There's no reason I should get on an official either. But I think one of the things that like is, I know from my experience, if there's a call and it's emotional, and I feel like I just have a short period of time to express my concern, a lot of times I'm very loud and very vocal. And a lot of times those guys on the side think that I'm jumping their ass right there, where I really don't intentionally mean to do that. I'm just trying to be loud because I feel like I have to make my point very quickly. So it's not always my intention where I want to start, to be confrontational, things like that. And I think it's, I heard one of the guys say before, it's emotional time there too. And, a lot of energy and things going like that. So I think sometimes I know personally, I'm going to make it a point where I'm not going to be personal and take it things like that. But a lot of times I just feel like there's not a lot of time to communicate, or maybe if you feel like you have something to get into those guys. So I think that would be something to kind of keep in mind there as well. And then like the other thing too, is I think that, if there's a call and it could happen, like, we get a holding call after a 15-yard game that I can't see, and we don't know where it came from, and we lose 15 yards and then we're backed up another 10 for those kind of flags that come from, where you can't even see it coming in. And just sometimes some explanation on those things, I think would kind of help that a little bit there as well.
Hey, one more thing I wanted to mention, and I meant to mention it in the context of the correction thing is, we had a right tackle a couple years ago who struggled a lot, and he probably got corrected more than any player in my career, in practice. And we make a point of telling our kids out of the gate, it's not personal. When there's a mistake made by the right tackle, we're correcting the right tackle. And we say, don't take it personally and don't make it personal. And I think, sometimes we fall into that trap, but the goal is it's not personal. We're questioning a call. Unfortunately, you guys got a tough job where half the stadium doesn't like whatever you call, no matter what it is. So, we're not trying to criticize you personally or berate you. Like we said, we're questioning a call, and maybe we're right, maybe we're wrong, whatever the case is. It's not personal. And I think most coaches will tell you that they never go into a week going, man, I can't wait to get in an argument with an official tonight, or to have a call that, sets me off or sets the other guy off, or give the hard time to somebody. I think most guys go in saying, these are good guys. We appreciate them. We enjoy visiting with them before the game and during the game for the most part. Nobody wants that. We all want it to just go smoothly. And like Jason said, sometimes when there's not a lot going on penalty wise, you feel like it's been a good night, but I understand that, they got to call what they see too.
Brian, go ahead.
Nick, one of the biggest growth periods for me as an official is whenever I learned the word empathy, and when it came to coaches and to players, and to understand their point of view. To Don's point about getting the last word, it's never great. You have to understand that these guys put their blood, sweat, and tears in the game Sunday through Thursday. They're the head coach. They're used to correcting, like Don said, their tackle or their other player. And here comes 6 other officials into the game telling them where they're wrong. Okay, because that's where it makes it a little bit difficult situation where the officials come in. So you have to understand that context of when you come into that game, when you make a call that they don't like, or they do get excited, like, these 3 coaches, they get excited, and it's not because they're angry at you. They're passionate about winning. They're passionate about their team. They're passionate about their career in coaching. So by asking them, would you like to repeat yourself? If they somewhat get out of line, I think all 3 of them are smart enough to know if that phrase is said to them, they understand that they're getting to that point where they're teetering on that edge of getting out of line, and then they will check themselves and bring it back down. And by you screaming at the coach as he's screaming you, it just becomes a match of who can scream the loudest. So it's uncomfortable to get, when the coach is yelling at you, to you as an official, you need to stay level. Your emotions need to stay just calm, because you're the calming force in that game. Okay. So we'll do this roundtable again on this next question. Like when we're warning one of your players, whether the left tackle is getting too far in the backfield or your linebacker is getting close to having a personal foul, do you coaches like when we warn the player, or do the head coaches like to be warned, or do you just want us to go to your position coaches to warn that, to do that warning system?
Well, I can tell you, I know every game that I go on, the linesmen, I always tell them, walk up to them and I say, listen, if we're too far back, let me know. I'll move them up the next play. When we're on defense, we like to crowd the ball. If we're too far up, let me know. I'll back them up. So communication like that goes a long way, because I'll fix that too. If it's, because the crew last week is probably seen a little bit different than the guys that we have this week. So that communication goes a long way with me. I'll fix that because, my background was being an O-line guy. The other thing too, like with personal fouls, I want to know if one of my kids is not doing the right thing. I want to know, because I'll jump his ass before anybody else, because I want him to be right. And I'll make sure that I can communicate that. And if I can't get to him, I'll make sure I have the position coach grab that kid also. Because I definitely don't want any of those 15-yard penalties. They kill you in the game. I don't want my kids acting that way. So I'd like to have that come to me.
We spend a lot of time talking to our kids about, repping the G and representing the school the right way, and wearing the name on our chest the right way and all that stuff. So it's important to us. We're on the same team in that regard. If a kid's out of line, as far as what he's saying on the field, I absolutely would want to know. And we'll filter it through our coaching staff. I may have my defensive coordinator talk to a defensive player, or my linebackers coach talk to that linebacker who's on the verge of getting a personal foul, because it's kind of like people say about when, the school calls you about your kid, your kid. And when they describe what he did, you probably understand and have seen it many times before at home. It's not something new at school. That linebacker that's about to get a personal foul probably does it in practice. Maybe he did it the week before. Maybe he's that guy who tries to play a little bit on the edge. And we know that. So the more we know about that conversation you have with them, the better. And then it helps us to, and again, without sounding too much like the parent in the principal meeting, we can support you guys and say, hey, look, you're not worth a 15-yard penalty to kill this drive. Calm down. And let's understand that I bet he told me that he's about to throw the flag, and if he does, it's on you, brother. That kind of thing. As far as the tackle being back, yeah, any information we got or anything that we can convey back to our guys, I'd like to tell you that we only tell them once and they do it right 1,000 times, but I think we sometimes tell them 1,000 times and they do it right maybe once. So at the end of the day, you telling us to have a chance to warn them, I always appreciate that. Hey, your guy wasn't on the ball, or he was covered up, or he was off the line. I appreciate knowing that, because again, it's probably not the first time it's ever happened, and it's probably gives us an opportunity to address it, like all those other kind of corrections that we sort of referenced in a couple contexts.
I think it's different for every staff. So, when I was at Upper St. Clair and we were on defense, Coach Render was 20 yards down the field. And so the communication came to me on the defensive side, and we flipped it over and the communication went through them. So I just think you have to know your staff and ask the head coach before the game, who do you want to talk to? These are high school kids, so we appreciate the chance to teach them and for them to learn. So when a kid is crowding the line too much, say, coach, get 65 back, we'll get them back. We appreciate those things, and those little trinkets go a long way and between the communication and the flow of the game with the referees and the coaches. And I think there's nothing wrong with asking before a game who you want to talk to. Is it okay to talk to this person or that person? And we all want to know what's happening with our kids. So if they're getting out of line, we're the ones that can handle them the best. So we as the head coaches probably appreciate that information the most. And the one thing I wanted to say for the previous talk was sometimes the communication from the opposite sideline gets a little rough. And, we as coaches sometimes can get a little upset when a call from the other side occurs a lot more than it happens on our sideline. And that tends to take a while to get, why has that been called? And those are the things that can get upset. So just that line of communication, especially when a penalty occurs opposite of that side of your sideline, to get that communication to as quickly as possible goes a really long way.
Yeah. And I'll add one other thing for officials, and don't always come with bad news. Don't always come with the penalty was on 74. The penalty was on this, because, every time the coach sees you, he's going to think, oh, here comes more bad news. Praise the player too. Like, hey, I know I talked to you about 54 earlier, about being on the edge. He's doing a really good job. That way the coach knows, and that you recognize this, that he's doing a pretty good job too. So just don't always come with bad news. The last question, and this happens, more than we probably like as officials, and we'll start with Don. If I make a mistake and I come to you and I say, you know what, I blew that call, are you going to handle that? You're going to handle that obviously a lot different than if I try to cover up my face.
Okay, come here. Come here. Where's it hurt? Is it your calf or the whole leg?
I'm sorry, Brian.
Oh, no problem. Did you hear what I asked? Or
I didn't hear the end of the question. I'm sorry. That was a.
Oh, and so I make an obvious. I blow a call, like right. I called a holding call, and it was, we all as officials know we have that pit in our stomach. And we're like, man, I wish I could have had that flag on the string and pulled it back in. It's obviously you're going to handle the situation differently if I come up to you and like you're saying, Brian, it wasn't there, and I say, you know what, coach, you're right. Or if you're going to handle it a lot different than if I say, no, coach, I'm right, and I'm just going to dig my heels in and stand the ground. Either way, you're not going to be happy, but you're going to at least respect the person a lot more if they can admit their mistake.
Without question. I mean, I don't think any of us are asking guys to, admit mistakes they don't think they made. So I'm not expecting a guy to every time a call's made to tell you it was wrong because it wasn't in your favor. But there's no question that over the years, the best officials are the ones. And again, I'll go to the extreme. If it's the 14th time he came over to tell me he blew it, then your patience is a little thin then. But if a guy who is a good guy doing a good job, like almost every official I've ever been around, pretty much every official I've been around is with a really tough job, and they're going to come over and say, you know what, maybe we missed that one. Yeah, you got to give them a respect. We don't like to hear players say my bad very much. In fact, my response to players who say it is, yeah, we all know. I know. I knew it's your bad. You don't have to tell me. I'm gonna remind you. But with an official, there's a ton of respect that comes with making that admission. If hey, I missed one. We're all human, and if I could count up the number of calls I wish I had back as a coach, throughout my career, it's a pretty long list too. So without question, we appreciate that a lot.
Jason, you have anything more to add?
No, I mean, I would agree that goes a long way with me as well. The more longer I've been a head coach, the more I realize that you guys really have a tough job. I mean, you really do. And start to see it both ways there. But yeah, definitely. And I've had guys in the past, even the following year or even later in the season, come up and tell me they were wrong on something. It's not like it makes it all great and everything, but I respect that a lot. And that communication we've been talking about, I think that's really, really valuable there. Absolutely.
Hey, Brian, John had to jump off. That was John.
No. Okay. I mean, that's really all I had to cover, Nick. I mean, I just want officials, because I preach this a lot, the past year and a half that I've been in doing this, and I wanted mainly the referees to hear this from the mouths of the coaches, because they're the ones that, they're the ones who have to coach the kids every game. They're the ones responsible for taking the heat from the communities when they win or lose in a game. And, there are obviously people that are more passionate than others, but we have to, as officials, understand how to deal with them, how to communicate with them and interact with them so that we can, make the game go better.
Yeah. Hey, could I add one thing real quick? I said earlier about a call stands out last year, a holding call I was real upset about in the playoff game. And the linesman on my side, of course, he was the one hearing it because he was right there. This went on for about 2 or 3 plays. And he finally looked at me and said, "Hey, coach, you made your point. I appreciate it. Let's move on." And whenever he said that to me, that really resonated. And it kind of put me back in perspective that, it was time to move on. So instead of him, firing back at me when I was still emotional, that really stands out to me, is that guy really handling that situation really well. And I really appreciated that.
Hey, Brian, what do you tell your coaches on Saturday when that same thing happens with Jason?
Oh, and I use the line whenever I make a mistake, and the coaches yelling at me, and those who watch me officiate, I make fun of those mistakes. But I always tell them, you have 2 plays to yell at me. You can yell at me all you want for 2 plays, but after that, we have to move on. Both you and I, because I have the rest of the game to officiate. Because if, I'm not good enough to be able to officiate and have you screaming in my ear the whole game. So, and I know there are times where coaches are sometimes working for that next call, and I get that. But, all 3 coaches on this call have readily admitted we do have a difficult job, and most of our job has to do with focus. So we do appreciate when you do say your piece, but then at the same time, a couple plays later, let's move on, because there's nothing actually we can do to go back and fix it.
Okay, guys, any questions from the referees? Johnny, Donnie, Jason, and John, hopefully just stick around 5 more minutes. Any questions from the audience?
Hi, Nick. This is Darren Tatella. I just wanted to let the coaches know, with the advent of the technology we're using, I know a lot of the crews now have access to Huddle, and we use O2Os on the field. So a lot of the things we see, we'll address with you pregame, at least from my group and my crew. I think that helps be preventative a lot of the ways. Say, "Hey, coach, we've seen some tendencies here. We just want to let you know this is what we're looking at and what we've seen." Also, anything that we can explain, especially as the one coach said, on the opposite sideline, we'll be glad to get the information we can from that covering official, pass it on to you. It's a lot easier. We can do it a lot more quickly now. So I think that is a great thing, especially if you have a DPI, OPI downfield, and they don't have the best view, they're 40 yards away. I'll ask my guy, "Hey, what'd you have on that?" And we can get that information to you a lot more quickly. I think that helps speed the game and maybe heads up some of this back and forth with it. But I agree with your point. Communication is key, and admit if we do make an error in judgment or whatever, we'll deal with it and move on. I know we're all grown adults, and we do appreciate your feedback as well. That's why we do reports. It makes us grow as officials, and hopefully we can assist you guys as well to do your job to the best of your ability. But that's what I had. Like a lot of the stuff now with the radios and stuff, most of the crews have them. I think it makes ours and your job a lot more smooth to work together.
Thanks, Darren. Any other questions from the coach or from the referees?
Nick, I got one question, please.
Yes.
And this is for the 3 coaches. Just want to know their opinion, because this happened in the past to my crew. And I just want to get a clarification. So you have your assistant coaches or whatever on the sidelines with their little iPads and that. They come up to my head linesman or my line judge. "Oh, was that blocking? Was that pass interference?" It's on the other side of the field from this official. What's he supposed to tell him? What do you expect him to tell you? It's on the other side of the field. Us as officials, we're working specific areas. We're not worried about what's on the other side of the field.
May I answer that question for you? I'm not the coach, but what I would tell the coaches, I'm going to find out what the official saw on that play. I will report back to you at the next dead ball period or the next change of possession, and you'll get your answer at why or why not a foul was called.
Thank you.
If I could jump in too, I think the two things. One, you know, Darren mentioned the O2Os, and I know that, you know, officials can communicate a lot better than in the past where it had to wait for a dead ball or a break or whatever. So maybe, you know, that helps that alleviate a little. But I will tell you without question, the whole onset of replays on TV and replays on the sideline have not helped, you know, officials very much. You know, too many guys get a chance to look at it and relive the agony of what we think was a bad call, and maybe even confirm that it was a bad call. And you know, I've even made it a point. I'm trying not to even look at stuff until, you know, after the series is over, so that I don't revisit it. Because like it's made it hell on you guys that guys can say, hey, look, you know, it's right here on the iPad. You blew it, you know. And I think that has not been a great advent for the relationship, you know, with the sideline and the officials, for sure. I get it.
Yeah, right. Well, like honestly, if one of my assistant coaches was in somebody's ear a lot, I would hope that you let me know that, because I don't want my guys talking to the officials. You know, I talked to Nick last week when we were at a meeting, and he said if the head coach is talking to an official and you have two assistant coaches behind your shoulder, you know, chirping in and chiming in, I think all that does is escalate the situation. So I tell my guys, we actually just talked about it this morning, that, you know, any communication I want to go through me. So if they did see something on the iPad, they send it to me, and I'll decide if I send it in. So if someone is, you know, giving you a hard time, you know, whoever can get to the sideline and let me know, you know, that would be something I would really try to address during that game, so that you guys aren't hearing it so much.
And last
I
thing, you know, when I was talking about corrections, and I mentioned sometimes our assistant coaches are younger guys too, and sometimes I'm not saying they're at the age level or the maturity level of the players, but sometimes, you know, there are certain guys on our staff that get more excited, that, you know, and sometimes we don't even know that they're chirping at you, or that, you know, they're at the other end of the field, or still dealing with it. So yeah, I would appreciate it always if you just say, hey, we're just going to deal with the head coach, and then we know. And then again, let us know when a guy is you know, on our staff that's out of line. We, again, like any player, we'd like to make that correction. That's part of our responsibility.
thank all you coaches for your response. Thank you so much.
All right, in an effort to move on, okay, Jason, Coach Fasikas, Coach Hall, Coach Miller, thank you very much. You guys are welcome to stay. Okay, if not, we'll see you guys Wednesday night with the line judges and linesmen. I think it was very informative from the referees to hear from coaches. So if you guys want to stay, you're welcome. If not, we'll move on to Billy Schottenheimer now. Thanks, guys. Thanks, coaches.
Good, thanks, Nick. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you being here. As we move on, we're gonna have some dialogue with Joe Kulik and Benny Laria about referee mechanics. Just real quick though, while I have the referee's attention, if you have any crazy plays that you're seeing, please send them out to me. I'm trying to work with Dave Blair. We're gonna try to get some specific plays and try to get him a little more involved in, well, not more involved, but involved in our video library. So if you guys are seeing strange plays and things like that, really try to save the play, share it with me. I would really appreciate it. With that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Joe and Denny. And Joe, if you want to, I'll stop sharing my screen. If you want to, and these are Joe. Before I do that, these are Joe and Denny's email. And for consistency, I'd like to keep with mechanics. If you guys are having questions regarding referee mechanics, please don't hesitate to reach out to these gentlemen. These are their email addresses. I hesitate to put their cell phones because I know they're pretty busy guys. And but shoot them an email. I know they love talking football. If you have specific mechanic questions, you know, that we try to standardize throughout this group and our presenters for the WPIAL clinic. So please don't hesitate to reach out to these gentlemen, and they could in turn get back to me or Dave Barry and such, and we can get those questions answered. Okay. So now I turn it over to Joe and Denny. I'm gonna stop sharing.
Okay, Bill, thanks. I appreciate it. And Nick, thank you very much for allowing Denny and me to be part of this. There are some points that we have gotten feedback from Nick, from Dave Barry, from the assigners. And so we're going to discuss some of those issues. I'm going to ask Dave and Bill to jump in. And of course, Denny will be jumping in to discuss as well. The first is the issue of unnecessary roughness, a personal foul versus unsportsmanlike. It appears that we are too often calling unsportsmanlike fouls when it's actually an unnecessary roughness, a personal foul. A personal foul, unnecessary roughness, is a contact foul. An unsportsmanlike does not involve contact. If B57 slams the passer, if B57 slams a runner whose progress has been stopped, that is unnecessary roughness. That's a personal foul. That is not an unsportsmanlike conduct foul. We may have the flagrant foul option, but we should not be calling that an unsportsmanlike conduct foul. We should not be reporting that as a UNS. Bill, I know this is a topic that's a big item for you. Would you like to address any of the issues with regard to that? Billy?
Yeah. So, guys, because we're seeing an increased number of players being ejected, and then, now with the subsequent disqualification, that's a 2-game suspension. So they're missing 20% of their season. So we really want to do a better job as officials and really try to have that conversation with our crews that we need to be visible. If we see this starting, we need to be present. We need to get in. We need to get in front of those players. We need to break that stuff up. And I just don't think we're doing that well enough. We might be doing it, but I don't think we're doing it well enough. So we really need to get in front of, get involved. Deep judges need to be coming in hard if they see guys. I mean, umpires do this on a daily or a routine basis every play, but we really need to get involved and get players separated, make yourself present, coming in saying that play's done, that play's done, that play's done. So that'll be discussed a lot more as we move on through the season. But if you guys could just maybe relay that to your crews and really get a good understanding of how we can be preventive. We can prevent those things from happening.
And if you watched Brian's referee presentation, if you were part of that, he had a short video showing an incident. And of course, he discussed an incident that he had with one of the games he assigns. Bill's point relates to our second point also, which is to communicate. We say it all the time. You hear the coaches talking about it. Well, our communication does not always need to be verbal communication. It certainly can be. When you see those interior linemen, one on offense, one on defense, who are having some issues, you can come up, be present, be there, say, hey, 52, everything okay? How's it going tonight, 67? You guys okay? Or just by being there. And we want to make sure our whole crew is there. The referee and umpire may have the most direct impact, but our wing officials and our deep officials can have an impact by accordioning in. We talk a lot on field goals and tries where we want the short wings to bust in, especially a try. One team's already upset. They've given up a touchdown. That's where we can have a lot of shenanigans. Get in there, be present. If you watch video, as obviously our assigners and evaluators do, they know if our deep wings are not coming in. We have to stress to our deep wings, get in there, let your presence be known. You don't want to leave anybody behind, but if it's a short run, 4, 5, 6 yards, accordion in, be seen on the video, let everybody know that you're there. The players are going to be aware of that fact. Okay, so you're communicating by your presence. The other point, though, of course, is communication through our verbal actions. Some of the coaches alluded to this, and Darren had also alluded to this. Certainly with O2Os, we can get the information. We don't have to be worrying about, coach, I'll get you that number. We can get on the O2O. We can report as it's being announced. It can be relayed from one crew member to another, so we can get that communication in there. We need to do a better job to help control the game, to help control any issues or problems. Denny, you had wanted to talk about the communication also, so I'll turn that over to you to address some of your points. Denny, are you unmuted? Bill, Denny might still be muted.
We might not be able to hear him again.
Yeah, he's on his
Okay.
phone.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll move on then. Third point, staying with you.
Sorry.
Denny, are you there? Okay, we'll move on. Third point, staying with your quarterback. Quarterback's your key. That's who you have to be watching. Whether it's on a play over to the sideline or even on our reverse mechanics, we got to make sure we're watching the quarterback. It's very easy on an interception play for the defense to feel they have a free shot on the quarterback. If we're not watching the quarterback while we're working that reverse mechanic, the quarterback could get lit up, could get injured. That is our key. We have to stay with them. I remember a wise old official said to me many years ago, if that quarterback goes up to the concession stand, you better be able to tell me if he took ketchup or mustard on his hot dog. Wherever that quarterback goes off to the side, we got to stay with the quarterback. We can't just be hanging around. We have to be over there making sure we clean up. One of the issues is the pace of the game. And this is especially relevant now as we talk about the changes with the 40-second play clock. In the old days, okay, the referee, we might come up to the line of scrimmage and we might observe everything and we might chop and wind and take our time. The coaches don't want that. The players don't want that. And there's no need for us to do that. On those long run plays, as that ball is being returned in, we can be winding that 40-second clock. We know that it's going, winding the game clock, I apologize. We know the play clock is running. We can be winding that game clock. Now, we have to do that in a reasonable fashion, obviously. We have these hurry-up offenses, and we do not want to let our umpire get killed. So we can do that by communicating. What I'll do is I will talk to my quarterback as I'm running upfield with him. Okay, number 12, I'm going to tell you when I'm winding that game clock. Listen, I'm going to tell you when. We can make sure that our umpire puts up the stop sign so that the umpire is not getting killed and the ball getting snapped. The umpire is going to get the ball down. The umpire can communicate with the snapper, say, snapper, let me get out of the way, or putting up the stop sign until they back up a step or two. Dave, this was a big point for you. Dave Barry, how about you want to chime in on this to try to address this issue? Dave, are you there? Mute now. Yeah, okay. Joe. With the new hurry up offenses, we have to think about, well, what we talked about earlier, where we all need to do it the same way. I know we have some crews that the umpires are very progressive in getting that ball in and snapped. We have some crews where the umpire isn't quite that efficient at getting the ball down. So each crew is going to have to adjust to getting that ball down within that 9 to 13 seconds after the end of the play. It could be done easy way. I like the umpire giving the stop sign. If you talk to the quarterback before the game, you know, you get the ball down, you put the stop sign up, you back out of there, you get to a position where you feel comfortable, and then your referee looks at you and he gives you the point and you can drop it. Referees, we know we got to make sure we have all of our 6 officials in position before we can drop that and they can snap the ball. We could be into a field goal situation that they ran a field goal team on, and we need people under the uprights. So we can't let that ball be snapped, which with the O2Os is another device that we have that we can make that transition a little smoother. Okay, thanks, Dave. And this is one of the things, again, we as the referees don't want to be in the way. We don't need to be up there over the ball. We don't need to be up on the line of scrimmage. We can be back in our position, winding the game clock as we need to, okay? A point of emphasis this year, intentional grounding. And obviously, too many of the people on the field, other than us, are learning the intentional grounding rules by watching NFL games, watching college games, whatever the situation may be. We need to make sure we're addressing those issues. We know what the rules are, and we need to make sure we have the mechanics in place to do that. As a referee, we need to be staying in that position. We pretty much know if this is a potential play where there might be an intentional grounding call. And whatever you're telling your wing officials to do, whether tooting the whistle or getting on the 020, they need to communicate. So I, as a referee, I'm going to stay where that quarterback is. I'm going to have in my mind that that ball was thrown from the 38-yard line. And when my wing official comes busting into me to say there's no receiver in the area, I can drop my flag right there at the 38 and enforce that penalty. Or if my wing official is pointing, saying there was someone there, or getting on the 020 and letting me know there was a receiver in the area. We need to work together as a crew to address these issues. Obviously, it's a problem. The NFHS is addressing it. Dave Blair wants us to address it. We need to address that issue. And the best way we can address it is how we're addressing the mechanics and talking to our crew, how we're going to work that together so that we make the right call. Okay. I would strongly encourage, and it's been alluded to previously, the use of huddle. We don't have a lot of time to talk to the coaches. In the old days, we would go talk to the coaches when we got there. We're talking to the coaches on the field at 45 minutes. We have to do a coin toss at 30 minutes. We really don't have a whole lot of time to discuss some of the issues with them. But think about it also from the credibility standpoint. You go up to Coach Hall and you say, Coach, I noticed on the game tape, your quarterback number 7 is right-handed. Will he be your quarterback this evening? You got that credibility. He knows that you're prepared for that game. And it removes those timing problems that we may have where we still need to get into special plays, questions they may have, everything else. Getting your crew prepared by reviewing huddle, getting on there, looking at the video so that you're ready for the game. And then afterwards, reviewing what's there. You know, there's going to be a discussion at the rules meetings, and I'm sure we're going to hear from Dave Blair about the supplemental disqualifications. It was in our preseason bulletin. But maybe we need to take the time to review it post-game. We can review, did we really have that situation? Did 57 maybe give a shove and a little bit of a retaliation as opposed to giving a punch? Do we really want to give 57 a 2-game suspension if it wasn't warranted? That report needs to be in, not within 5 minutes. It has to be in 24 hours. And so if we take the time to review what's happened on huddle before submitting that report, maybe we save ourselves a lot of problem. Maybe we keep a player in the game who should be in the game and not take, as was noted earlier, maybe a fourth of his season away from him. Okay. Signals. We talk about this all the time. Clean, crisp signals. You know, I watched Denny, and I hope Denny's going to jump in eventually on some of these discussions. And it's right out of the textbook. We shouldn't be out there moving. We shouldn't be out there showing incorrect signals. If you ever went to the state convention a few years back, Dave Barry did a nice presentation on the use of the microphone. We can do that as well. Make sure that we're making it clear. Remember, one of our mechanics is we need to be giving the number of the player that committed the foul. If we do our mechanics with the signals as we verbalize on the microphone, we can walk it all the way through. Whether you're saying dead ball or prior to the snap, we got that hand up nice and high, looks great. We're giving the nice twirl if it's signal 19, or we're giving the encroachment signal while standing still. It just makes us look good, quite candidly. It's the mechanic issue. Denny, you want to address any of those items or any of the other points that we've discussed?
Joe, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. So we as referees, and well, let's all agree that we're in charge of our crews. If they screw up, it's going to fall on us. So these mechanics, field mechanics and positional mechanics that Joe was talking about, and that Nick and that the assigners want us to enforce, they're our responsibility. So now we're going to have some scrimmages coming up. Let's get all ironed out, right? Let's get these rules we have to know, but these standards of mechanics, that's on us to critique our guys to make sure that they understand. And the big one, not the big one, it's one of many. The flag mechanic that the one coach was talking about. Yeah, I didn't see that ICM missile go flying. I didn't know if did he throw it 100 feet in the air? He was trying to make a point. But let's remember, there are flag mechanics. That's a big part of what we do. So don't let your guys go out there dangling 2 flags in the front because it looks like they want to throw a flag. Have one tucked in the back pocket, always tuck one in the front, and make sure they understand about reaching for one and how a coach is watching you do that. But there are these no spot fouls. The flags do get thrown in the air. Now, with the spot fouls, naturally, we're throwing the flag to the spot. So let's make sure that we get our flag mechanics right. How about whistle mechanics? Make sure that only the people in the zone covering the play with the ball down blow the whistle. So, and these mechanics they all lie with us. Don't turn your back on it, correct it early. And then another one for me, being all of 5 foot tall, the ball gets thrown over my head. Ball mechanics, take another 2 steps. What looks better than us throwing the ball to one another properly, everyone catching it, not missing the ball and having to chase it. So ball mechanics is pretty good. Let's practice that nice and early. Let's get our flag mechanics and whistle mechanics on. And then aside from just positional mechanics, let's do a measurement. Let's get a measurement in that week 0 game. Let's do a measurement. Why? Because it's not a mime. It's not. If you have your field judge running around talking to people on the sideline, hey, get the ball. Somebody's coming in and secure the ball. Somebody get another ball. Everybody has a job to do. Penalty enforcement. There's penalty mechanics. So, and it's all lies with us. So make note of it and get your crews sharp, because all they can do is make you look good, or they can hang you out to dry. Thank you, Joe.
Okay, Denny's, let's get to the video. I hope I'm sharing my screen. Bill, is it up there?
No, just you're on there.
It's not, Joe. So hit the green button that says share screen.
Got it.
And then there you go. You got it.
All
Joe.
right. See, there you go. All right. So some videos I put together. Some of these comments are my comments. Some are put on by other people. Some things we need to look at. All right. Let's get on this early. We've heard for years that out here in Western Pennsylvania, we don't do a good job on sidelines. Let's get on this early. Let's make sure the coaches, as the play's ready to get out, are out of the area. Let's make sure those players are back. On most of the fields, there is plenty of room. Let's get them back. Let's make sure we don't have any problems, okay? I wanted to use this video in particular because, as I'm going to note, hopefully this will not be a problem this year. Just as a friendly reminder, we have dark jerseys this year, all right? We're still going to play this game, but we have to let our assigners know that the team did not have appropriate jerseys, okay? It's too light. We've gone through the gradients. You're going to hear that in your state rules interpretation meetings. Just pass it on up the line to the next person. Okay. Here on this video, you can't see the referee. That means the referee's in a pretty good position where it should be. We always talk 13 to 15 deep, 13 to 15 wide. We do that so the referees can help watching the tackles, all right? As the play goes on, we know that our umpires could be screened. There's traffic in front of the umpire, may not be able to see things. And we see we have an action that should warrant a flag. And fortunately, there comes the flag bouncing on the field. We as referees can get that and help the rest of the crew make our crew look good, all right? On this play, we have the quarterback running out of bounds. We have to make sure our crews are focused on what they should be. The line judge is there, making sure that we have no problems. We got two teams here. Somebody may be upset that the quarterback got hit harder than they think should happen. They want to protect their quarterback. Your head linesman can provide that soft spot. The head linesman can orally communicate on the 020. Hey, you want it at the 38. Hey, you want it to 41. We want to make sure that our wing officials are keeping those sidelines from having any serious problems. And we want to make sure the referee is there. The referee has to be over there, making sure that the quarterback is safe. The quarterback is our primary key. We want to make sure we have no issues with it whatsoever. Follow your passer all the way in so that there are no problems. Okay. All right. So I talk about the referee being
Joe,
13.
Joe,
Yeah, go ahead.
Where was the deep guy on that play? Shouldn't he be coming up helping clean up that sideline?
I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. And we got to talk to our deep guys to make sure they're up in there too. What we mentioned earlier about accordion in. Thanks.
We'll
Okay.
discuss that on Thursday, right, Nick?
Okay, so I have this video. Now here, this guy is old and Polish, but he likes to tell you he should be 13 to 15, and he's not. Having wider angles helps cover everything. You're helping with the tackles, which is exactly why we should watch ourselves on huddle. Because if I got a call from Brian or Nick or somebody else and they said to me, where do you line up? I would say I'm 13 to 15 deep and 13 to 15 wide. But obviously in this situation, I was not. So we watch ourselves on huddle so we recognize the mistakes that we've made and try not to make them again. It's the only way we are going to improve, whether it's ourselves or our crew. All right, this is a reverse mechanic situation. We got to focus on that. We have to call the holding, and your reverse mechanic, remember the R is going to have that lead. We got to get back there. We have to make sure that we have everything covered, okay? All right, on this play, I'm throwing this in more for a discussion point. I don't know. Late hit? Should we have had a flag, or is this a talk to moment? Do we consider the egregiousness of the hit? What happened with it? Can he stop in midair? Quite candidly, when I looked at this play afterwards, I think I should have had a talk to moment, if not a flag. Where it was in the game situation, I think not throwing the flag perhaps was the right thing to do, but I should have been in there talking to the guy, and I was not. And I should have been up there in his face, making my presence known. Okay, positioning again here, a little too close to the line, a little too close to the formation. We need to be back and wide so we can see the tackles. If it's on that far hash, we can be outside the numbers a little bit. Here we get the foul, but don't throw the flag at the player. We know there could be possible injury. Do we need the flag at the spot if it's not a spot foul? These are all issues that we need to consider. Here again, the referee, a little too close to the action. And as the play develops, we see exactly what unfortunately can happen when you are a little too close to the action. We're not seeing what's going on, and we're worried about saving our life more than anything else, okay? A comment was made earlier about how you can see when somebody reaches down at their flag. Watch here and see what the umpire, you can see the hand there at the waist, thinking about maybe we might have had an illegal touch. Okay. This next video, referee, comments made, good starting position. But as the play develops, we as referees don't need to be moving. And I'm one of the worst at that. I needed to be told 100 times, quit moving. And thankfully I was told that. When you move, your eyes are moving. We need to stay set. There's really no reason to run over toward the passer. At that point in time, the eyes are bouncing. Now here, we're turning too quickly. We got to trust the rest of our officials. We got to stay with the quarterback. All right. So we're watching this play. Everybody's looking at the play, but not at the quarterback who could have somebody laying on top of him punching him, spitting in his face. Referees, stay with your quarterback. And here the comment was made, the signal's not necessary. The whole world knows that it's a touchdown. We really don't need to throw that touchdown signal on top of it. Let's focus instead on cleaning up. Okay, again, nice old Polish guy. Somebody made the comment on here that I had good position to start. Here's a question here that was thrown in, a comment for the side judge saying a good no call with regard to defensive holding. So my quarterback gets sacked. Great. I'm coming in to give the spot. Isn't that wonderful? Why aren't I with the quarterback? I'm doing a great job with the spot, but trust your wing officials. They're going to get the spot. We don't need to be there giving the spot, okay? And finally, again, the positioning, we need to be back so we can see in. We don't want to be lined up here. We want to be back further, more in this area, so we can see the kicker and holder, but also see the interior line play, okay? All right, I'm going to stop the sharing. Danny, anything you wanted to add on any of these videos? I know we're running out of time, but we still have a couple of minutes.
Well, you know, Joe, the one play where you said I should have had a talk to with the bump or the hit that the kid had on the lineman that was down, that's what we have to avoid, having your umpire come up and say, mistakenly, I have an unsportsmanlike. And if you don't quiz him on that, by God, that's a complete misapplication of the rule. And it happens where you have to say, well, and that's what we have to do as referees. What happened? What did you say? Oh, well, he hit him late. That's not unsportsmanlike. But I think that's an example of the kind of play where if we don't question our guys a little bit, then we could inadvertently hit someone with a UNS, and it's really it's not proper. So that's the only thing I wanted to throw in. They were great videos, Joe.
Thanks, Dan.
And you were in good position, Joey.
Bill, you said you had a couple of questions you wanted to have answered.
Yeah, guys. Who has a question for Joe or Denny? I know somebody was
Henry did. Henry Frango.
Henry.
Unmute, Henry.
I had one for Joe. He said earlier about ejection use huddle to go back and maybe during a post-game review, not send the ejection report in. I'm just questioning that because if we tell the coaches and we give the signal and we throw the kid out during the game and we're on video throwing the kid out and then we don't fill a report out and that gets sent into the state by the opponent of that team because it's on huddle now, are we going to get in trouble for that? Because we've talked about it in the locker room and somebody's talking out of an ejection.
Well, I'll tell you my perspective, and I hope Dave Blair or Dave Barry or somebody will chime in on this. If I have ejected a player for fighting, my wing guy comes in and says, 57 threw a punch, we have to eject him for fighting. And I eject him for fighting. And I look at that video later and I see that 57 actually did more of a push off in retaliation. I'm going to talk to my wing guy and say, let's look at this play. And I don't want to send a report in saying 57 deserves a 2-game supplemental disqualification for fighting if my crew, or in particular, maybe me, made an error in judgment. I don't think that's fair. So maybe fine. I'm going to cover my own ass. I'm going to cover my crew's ass. I'd rather say, look, I made a mistake. Okay, 57 was ejected from the game. He does not merit a 2-game suspension. We made an error in judgment. And I think you've heard from Nick and from the assigners and from the coaches, we got to man up. You make a mistake, you admit you make a mistake. It's unfortunate, but I think it's a learning experience. I would much rather do that than try to cover my ass and say, yeah, give him a 2-game suspension. And then they're looking at the video. The coaches are, Brian's looking at it, Nick's looking at it, Dave Barry's looking at it, and they're saying, Joe, seriously, what the hell's wrong with you and your crew? All he did was push off and you're giving him a 2-game for fighting. I think that's going to pretty much mean I'm not going to get a schedule from Brian or Nick or anybody else next year. I would rather they call me and say, Joe, you screwed up, but at least you admitted it. That's just my perspective.
Dave or Dave, any comments?
Yeah, let me jump in real quick too. On that, we want it, when you fill out that DQ form, all right, the officials don't have a judgment call to make. If it is for any of those reasons listed on the disqualification form that you've disqualified him for, throwing a punch, fighting, racial slurs, anything of that nature that is listed within that realm of that DQ form, you fill it out within 24 hours and you send it in. Now, to Joe's point, if you review that film the next day and it's you've made that mistake, then it may be time to go ahead and forward that on to the PIAA office. I will tell you, they are very reluctant in overturning any disqualifications, and they stand behind officials. With that being said, the only time they're going to try to overturn it, and I'm not saying that they wouldn't, Joe, is if you put down the wrong number. In other words, if you DQ'd 69 and the film shows it should have been 72, that will be changed. But to cover all of everybody, you know, and what you're doing, once you DQ that player, you send the form in, and if it comes to that situation where it is you made the mistake, then we need to get that to the office and allow them to make that determination.
Hey, Dave, this is Bill Heidkamp. Hey, could we not, if we review this thing and we have a discussion that we've decided that it was an error that the kid was disqualified, could we not go through our signer, then communicate with both teams to say that there was a mistake made on this disqualification, and we're going to pull that back? Now, the kid was still out of the game for the rest of that game, and that's too bad. But the fact is, he won't be missing 2 more games. Isn't there a recourse that we could take care of that if we do it as quickly as possible and be able to communicate to all the people involved?
I'm going to say no, Bill, and it'll be all honesty. Once you DQ him and you send that form in within 24 hours, we can't pull it back. We can't as officials, and I can't pull it back. That has to come from the office because you've DQ'd him. The other issue you run into is maybe the opposing team knows you DQ'd him, and now somebody was scouting and sees that kid playing the next week, and then there's going to be a whole lot more hell to pay, so to speak, from a lot of people. So if you feel that you've made that error and you filled out the form, you send it in, then we need to have that discussion with the office and Pat Gephardt and get it, reviewed. If you have a question like that, if anything does like that happen, God forbid, run it through Dave Barry, and Dave will contact me as well as PIAA office, and we can walk it through the best we can. I know we don't want to send kids out of the game and have them set out 2 additional games, but that's kind of the process we're handed right now.
Can I add a little bit to
guys,
that? We had a discussion last year. We had a chippy game. Where does intent come into play with this? Because we had back and forth the whole game. We were very verbal with the kids. Towards the end of the game, we had a kid attempt to kick another player on the ground, missed him. What do you consider that? I mean, that to me is flagrant, even though there was no contact. And we ejected him for the rest of that game because he clearly had intent to kick somebody or do something like that. But we are loath to throw people out. But based on the situation and what that we saw from the player from multiple officials, we felt that was the proper course of action. However, there was no direct contact. So what is that?
Remember, the definition, go to Rule 210, Section 11. And I don't want to belabor too much, but the definition of fighting is it's an act, all right, not limited to attempts to strike an opponent. So it's an attempt to strike an opponent, regardless whether he connects or not. If that intent is there to strike an opponent with open hand, closed fist, foot, knee, whatever it is, that's going to be a fight. That's going to be classified as a fight.
Yeah, the rule clearly says attempt. So you have that covered. That's fighting. That's fighting. in that instance there where you've had many talk tos, I think you're definitely within your realm of an ejection.
Excellent.
agree,
Thank you. I
Dave.
appreciate
I
that.
agree with you, Dave.
All right, guys, and we're a little bit over our time. We do have the umpires coming on now, but I will say a few things in closing. And then I want to thank you all again for your time. I want to thank the speakers, Dave Blair, Dave Barry, Lee Leeper, Brian Sikowski, Vince Sortino. A couple things on my side. Social media. Do not engage anytime, anywhere, any place in social media. There's not an official alive who's benefited from posting on social media about a coach, player, or a certain game. If we catch social media, people telling on social media, hey, I got this game between two red teams on September 29th. There's not too many, games where two red teams aren't playing each other. I'm just saying, stay out of social media. All right. If you have a problem during your game that could be getting you to the point where you're on TV that night, make sure your signers know right away. All right. Do not speak to the media about it. Refer to the WPIAL, and we will talk about it at the WPIAL level. Okay. Let your signers know first. I'm sure the signers will then let us know. But please do not talk to the media about it. Coach perception. We had a playoff game last year where 6 officials went to one coach, talked for him about 10 minutes, went to the other coach, talked to him about 2 minutes. That coach got back to us and said, I knew I was screwed walking on the field. Coach perception is everything. All right, if you're going to talk to a coach for 10 minutes on the one side, please talk to the 10 minutes on the other side, because now he thinks he's going to get screwed. Right? It's all perception, guys. He was the away team going to a visiting team in the playoffs in the semifinals. And we had 6 guys talk to the one coach, and basically 1 or 2 guys talk to the other coach. COVID protocol, make sure referees, you talk to each school. Each school is responsible for their own COVID protocol. Norwood may say wear masks. Hempfield may say not wear masks. Clareton may say wear masks. You have to find out what each school is going to do, referees, before the Monday before each game. It's up to you to make sure your clearances are done. It's up to you to make sure your crew clearances are done. If we catch anybody working without clearances or not on the PIAA website, your crew will not work the rest of the year. Referee, that's your job, to make sure that you put 6 guys on the field. They're on the PIAA website every week. Other than that, thank you guys. Any questions or comments or concerns, please send me an email. If you thought it went well, if you didn't think it went well, if you think we could do different things, please let me know, as I'd like to continue this via Zoom. And I think we had 88 people attend via the referee session. We're going to an umpire session. Thank you all for your time tonight. Enjoy the rest of the night. Enjoy your family. Enjoy your families these next 2 weeks, because we start next Saturday. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, guys.